Hi and welcome to our latest edition of Get in the Habit podcast with myself, David Finch, Sue Allsworth, and we have a lovely guest today, Ana Garrancho. I hope I've said your name right, Anna.
Yes.
Yeah? Oh, good. Okay, welcome along.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, Anna. Welcome.
Hi.
I like to do your name with a little Ana Garrancho. That's how I like
That
to
sounds
do
good.
it. I like. It took me
I
6
can't do
months.
it.
It took me 6 months to learn how to roll my R's for when I was in Peru, because you have to roll your R's with Castellano. So I like to
Right.
use it whenever I can get it in, just to show off.
Yeah.
So, but welcome,
Cool.
Anna. It's lovely
Thank you.
to see you again. I know you came on some of the summits that I did during lockdown, and it was a pleasure to have you on. So would you like to tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, to our listeners and watchers?
Oh, where do I start? Well, I will start probably with my personality. I'm a self-confessed and incurable optimist, so I'm always looking for the positive in everything. I'm a mother of a 20 years old beautiful woman, a wife and a mama of a cute needy dog. Takes a lot of time being all of this, but professionally, I'll limit myself to the last few years. I've been working in the field of language and human behavior since 2008, more specifically devoted to coaching and mentoring, with a focus on neurobiology of emotions, which is a humanistic approach to mental health and well-being, so also physical well-being. Because of the pandemic, I've been working more on anxiety, self-limiting beliefs, self-worth, or the lack of it, and especially the habit of being yourself. So it's interesting. I live in the beautiful city of Canterbury. I love live here. Near the university where I earned my BA in counseling, coaching, and mentoring. And my most recent endeavor as a student was completing a postgraduate degree in neurobiology, which I'm using a lot, really a lot in my coaching and mentoring. One of the habits I have coming from counseling is at the beginning of each session, I always start with, how can I help you today?
I know, it's a common thing. They're coming. Do you know what? It's a question that sort of bugs me. That you've just taken me back to like going to a hairdresser. When I go to the hairdresser, which I don't anymore, hence my hair short. They always say, "Well, what do you want done today?" And my answer is I don't know. I'm not the hairdresser. I haven't trained in hairdressing. So we say, how can I help you? When actually they don't know how we can help them in some respects. And it's sort of a bit of a mute question, because I'd be sitting there as a client going, I don't know, I've come to you to say, how can you help me? You know?
But it's often what I have as an answer. You know, sorry, David, you were saying?
Yeah, no, that's what I say. That's what people think. They think, oh, you're the expert. You know, come on, tell me.
Yes, yeah. But I often have that same kind of reaction, and people say, I want to find myself. Mm. and it doesn't say anything how they can, how they want me to help them. They just say, I want to find myself. Well, the answer is always, you are a collection of behaviors inherited from your parents, habits, traumas, rituals, routines, limiting beliefs, all kinds of emotions, good and bad, and so forth. So it's then I have to go little by little, understanding what to understand what they have stored in their subconscious, and how I can help them in a more specific way. Because if it's not specific, how can I help them? It's like going to your hairdresser and say, I don't know. And she doesn't know if you want a long hair, short hair, if you want to be blonde, or if you want to have dark hair, curly or straight. It's the same with me. So usually when they are so in doubt, I start with self-limiting beliefs a lot.
It's a good place. I mean, we've all, even the most optimistic of us, have our moments, have our doubts. They're part of being human. I would actually be worried if I didn't have doubts, to be quite honest with you, at some point.
That's normal.
Doubts keep me in check. Doubts keep me questioning, but you don't need to allow those doubts to overcome and overpower the positivity, do you? That's that's the slippery slope, and where we've allowed those, I've used this phrase before, those negative thoughts become autopilot. They're that habitual that they're on autopilot, and we don't even know that we are now doing them because they're just on complete and utter. It's like being in the airplane and pressing autopilot and sitting there, look, hands-free, and cracking on with life.
Anna, excuse me, Anna, let me ask you a question. Do you think when you ask that question to someone and they say, I want to find myself, all right? Do you think what they mean is, I want to find a different version of myself because I don't like the version I am at the moment?
Yes, it is. Yeah. It is 100%. They don't like the version of themselves. They don't like what they see reflected from their parents. Right? Okay. For example, I don't want to be fat like my mother, or I don't want to be skinny or like bonish. I don't want to be a perfectionist like my father, for example, because it's affecting my life. And one of the things about perfectionism is being overly demanding on oneself.
Yeah.
So some people use perfectionism as a badge, but it's affecting their life. And the perfectionism comes from, they have heard from their parents they could do better. For example, Daddy, I got this exam, I got a B. Oh, you could have studied more and have an A. Why don't you have an A or an A plus? That child, because we register everything when we are in our childhood, and sometimes some things from the teenage years, but most of it from until 7 years old. Because we are sponges, our brain is like sponges, absorbing everything. So what it's stored in the unconscious is, I'm not good enough. And that feeling of not being enough will affect one's life throughout adulthood. So in relationships, in work, so it's their self perception of life. I'm not good enough. So, and then they project that to the world. Even if people don't say they are not good enough. They may say they are excellent people, they are really good. For them, they always see it as not being good enough because they have the badge of perfectionism. And that's not good, because it's a perpetuation of the feeling of not being good enough. When good, doing things good, it's good enough. It's just that feeling that I could always do better. But perfect things don't exist.
And it's quite often what we think we hear when we're children is not actually what is being told to us. It's our perception of that situation. And I've gone back and looked over a lot and unturned an awful lot of stones in my life, still am, to be fair, as we all are. And I look back and it was like, okay, so you saying about the B bit. I can always remember handing in an assignment, an English assignment, to my teacher, who I didn't get on very well with, probably because I talked too much. And and I got my first ever B. And what she said was, I knew you could do this. Well, I'd only done C's and D's before, and the only reason I got a B this time was because my dad had written most of the assignment and the poem, which is actually in one of my books and on the image back there. So when I came home, I got from my dad, huh, I didn't get an A, you know. So, and I'm like, hang on a minute, I'm normally a C and a D person. So I'm hearing now from the teacher, what I heard was I can't write, because I couldn't write because I hadn't written it, but she didn't know that obviously at the time, still doesn't to this day, unless she's listening into one of these podcasts. So, but it's what our inner voices tell us about a situation, especially when we're young, because we haven't fully developed. We're still developing in that stage. We're not understanding the whole world and knowing that there's maybe a bigger picture and maybe someone's having a bad day or whatever it is, but we stick something to that situation, to that experience, and we don't waver in that memory of it, do we? Until we're kind of asked and politely nudged to go, well, hang on a minute, can we go back? Someone pulled me up on the fact that I used, it was back in 2014, before I'd written the books and that. Sue, do you realise you say I can't write an awful lot? And I checked myself, I was like, oh, what are you talking about? What a BS, you know? And I checked myself the next day. Bugger me. I said I can't write a hell of a lot of times. And you then have to go back into it and ask yourself, hang on a minute, who played what role and what truth, not your opinions about it, but what actually was the truth of that core situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Anna, can I ask you, you said about maybe people want a different version of themselves and so on. How specifically do you help them? How do you help them to do that, to see a different version?
Well, I'm all the events that are stored in our consciousness. I work with them to go deep inside that part of the mind to bring to the conscious. When I understand, or the person understands that, oh, I'm like this because of this that happened, it makes sense. So usually our parents are different. We have different polarities. So what happens is, if we are more in one polarity, why not going to the other for a while and then find a balance? That's how I work. So the perfectionism, for example, I brought to the person. The person understands, oh, this is not me. This is something brought from my parent. And because things come from generation to generation, like we talk to my parent, if he had the same situation when he was younger, and yes, most of the time is yes, because that's what we are taught. So that person, when that person will have children, has to be careful of not projecting the same to the children. Right?
Yeah.
Because everything, many things, not everything, but many things come from experiences, events that happen. Oh, you could have an A, right? Or it comes from epigenetic events, which is events that comes from generation to generation that are attached to our DNA. Even though, for example, that family, the conscious, that perfectionism is not something to do because it affects our family, I will not pass to my children. It can come from genetically. Okay, having the conscious of this will help you to make the right decisions. Imagine that you are working in a project and this is not the way that I would like to be. Am I like lighting up the candle of perfectionism or not? Is it good enough? Probably it's good enough. Present it to your manager and see what the person says. And the person might say, the manager might say, well, this is perfect. And you're like, no, it's not. I could do better. But if it's good, it's good. And the person made a decision that I'm going to step back, let the course of things happening, because probably I will be in the next project doing something really good, right? And I perpetuate my job, for example, instead of losing my job, because I never present my projects because I always feel that it's not perfect.
So how can we, I mean, I'm sure there are many of us watching and listening to this who can raise their hands and at least say, I'm an ex-perfectionist, if nothing else. But they can, connect with this on some way. Are there any little daily habits that we can do on our own that can break that habit, I suppose, or not necessarily break it, but learn to accept it, that it is actually part of who I am? Because sometimes it's not about breaking the habit. It's not about changing. As you said, it's not about, I want to be me. It's not about changing who we are. It's about understanding who we are. And then I'm using the A word again, Dave, here. Warning. Acceptance is a massive word, isn't it? So are there any little, for anyone's listening and connecting with it, what could you recommend?
I would recommend reflection, understanding what happened in the past, because there are events that we still remember. Others, they are so deep that we can't remember. But analyze your parents' behavior. Which direction are you? To one side or another? Try to find a balance, reflect on that, and ask yourself, why do you want to change that? Because if you have a why, a meaning, a really deep meaning, then you will be able to set some rituals, some routines, I don't want to be perfect, so let me see what I've done so far that allow me to be good enough, but not perfect. How was the outcome when I was not going for perfectionism? Then you can set rituals, for example, affirmations or affirmations. Affirmation is more related with the why. First, find your why, and then you have your affirmation. Forgive yourself.
Okay. Forgiveness has been a big journey of mine. I didn't realize how much habitually I lived in the land of resentment and blame and holding on, and that does come from family traits. I'm not divulging which way or the other. I'm not going to dob either of my parents in at this moment, but but I had to look back at both sides of my family to see, hang on a minute, and I had to teach myself forgiveness, and it's forgiveness is the key, isn't it, at the end of the day?
A ritual that you can set for yourself for forgiveness, which is the most difficult thing that you can do, is forgive yourself and others, is, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I love you.
That's the Ho'oponopono, isn't it?
Yes. But forgive yourself first.
Yeah. It's the one I use letter writing for forgiveness, dear whoever. And it doesn't have to be a person. It could even be the situation itself, you know. But at the end of it, I always end up having, the only person I need to forgive is myself, because even if I'm judging someone who's deemed to be bad, I'm still judging someone. And so it always takes it back to that self where you know, you can forgive others. I've been able to forgive others who have done harm to me easier than myself forgiving myself for my part in that situation. So it's a little web, isn't it, forgiveness, and it's a tricky one.
When you feel that the person is being mean to you, it's your perception, because someone next to you might feel that no, she's just honest and caring. She just wants your best. So it's your own perception. That is why that you have to forgive yourself first. Okay, and that perception can come from your parents or grandparents. Might not be yours. And
actually, you know, we're talking about parents and that, but from living in different countries, like I know you have, Anna, I have definitely seen a cultural thing as well. Every culture has and within one country. I mean, in Peru, there was many different cultures within one country, as we have in England now, but within culture that goes throughout the generations, that's bled into that as well. It plays a really big part as well, I think, on that. Do you agree?
Yes, totally agree. I project some things that from in my culture are completely natural.
Yeah.
And here, oh my goodness, I'm rude, I'm bad, you know. And it's not. It's the perception that I have, and that the perception that that person has. And I'm not responsible for the reaction of the other person. I'm only responsible for my own reaction. That's why I have to forgive myself. But there are, for example, one thing that is really noticeable. It's when people say, oh, money is bad. I don't want money. And other people say, no, I love money because it provides me food, shelter, clothes, everything. So in a simple way, you can already distinguish that people project things. Why they don't like money? Because of the experience they lived when they were children. The conversations they heard from adults and things like that, and they'll make their own perceptions. So everything is a perception, and your own perception.
So if someone, is no such thing as the truth.
Yeah. So let's take that example then, because I'm interested in that. If somebody has that thing about money and they say, oh no, you know, it's not about money, and other people have that thing, oh yeah, it's about money, you know, what would they have heard as a child then, do you think? You know, what have they got in their head? What's those perceptions that went on when they were children, or from their friends? If they haven't heard it from their parents, maybe they heard it at school from school friends, or what? What would that conversation be to make someone feel, oh yeah, I want lots of money, or I don't want lots of money?
Well, until 7 years old, you are more connected with your parents and grandparents. So it's 99.9% influenced by your parents. It's not likely that it comes from friends or other adults. Might be conversation between adults, but your father, for example, because it's the main provider usually, had with someone else. Okay, in my experience, and I don't have problems sharing this. I found out that my father, I heard what my father had having a conversation with my grandfather. I love my father. I love my grandfather. They were both my heroes. So when I heard them having a conversation about money, my grandfather had an idea to earn money. My father was against because he wanted to protect my grandfather from working too much.
Right.
My perception was, why two people that I love so much are fighting about money. I constructed an idea that money is not good for family because separates family, because separates the people that I love. So I had problems with money all my life. So, for example, I was earning a lot of money and I will spend it a lot with crazy unforeseen expenses. Like my car went for maintenance, it was perfect, went to the MOT, was approved 100%. 2 weeks later, broke. Why? Because I was attracting that. Right? Because it was my projection to the world. So what I received from the universe, or the law of attraction, however you want to call it, was a confirmation that my projection, my perception of the world about money was correct.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Having this understanding made me change completely the way that I think about money. So I attract money in a different way. Am I spending it? Yes, I need to spend it. The bills always chasing me. Water, electricity, they are always like knocking on my door. But I don't attract unforeseen expenses like before.
No.
So it's like I'm making a conspiracy with the universe about money to have it with me more time than it was before.
Yeah. And it's saying, well, this is my relationship. It's like we call them habits, but they're relationships with things, aren't they? And we take those relationships on, and it's kind of like turning around and saying, well, this is my new relationship. I choose to have this relationship with money. I get that where it's now come from. But this is what I choose to do and manifest and put out there from here on. So once you've recognized where that's come from, I always say to people, up until you've recognized where something maybe has come from, or as you say, reflected and gone back and looked a bit, you're kind of like off the hook a little bit. But once you've recognized it, you from there on in, from that point moment, it is fully your responsibility, because you can't say, oh, well, I didn't realize, because you do now. And so it's like, well, you've now, this is the bit I think where it does scare us, going into therapy and counseling and life coaching and that, it's all very well. But once you've recognized certain aspects of your life, of yourself, you can't undo that knowing. You can't be ignorant ever again.
Yeah.
You can't say, right. By going on this journey, the one thing I have learned is it is one of the biggest responsibilities you'll ever embrace, because you have to take on the responsibility of your perceptions, of your reactions past, because of that perception, which may be different now to how you view things. And then we get into that, like you say, that blame, and I need to forgive myself, because how I would react to something of past is not necessarily how I would react to something in the same way of the same situation now, because I've grown, I'm different, and I can't blame it. It is that very much that, open the door by all means, but when you've opened that door, what you walk through in that room that you own is completely yours and for you to own, isn't it, Anna?
And you create then the habits that you need to create, like changing your thinking. No, money doesn't separate families. I can help with money. I can even help my family. And you start changing the way that you think about money, your unconscious will be overloaded with better information, and eventually that will disappear and becomes your natural way of
innate
of being. So then you can find yourself having money.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Anna. Go on, Dave.
Yeah, so I was going to say, we're coming around to the end of our podcast. I just wondered if you had like 3 tips or something like that for people to, if they're in that asking that question we asked earlier about finding themselves. Have you got 3 tips perhaps that you can go, hey, I'll do this?
Yes. Well, like I was saying before, have a look, reflect on your childhood, ask your parents if they are still alive. And with that reflection, ask yourself, why do you want to change? And then set the routines that you need to. It's not really difficult. If you want to lose weight, then you set routines to drink more water, change the way that you eat and the time that you eat, for example. But for example, for money, change your thinking. You can write affirmations, and you can write down what you are grateful for, and forgive yourself all the time. So I will say that it's 4.
Okay, yeah, that's brilliant. Oh, thanks very much. I asked for 3 and I got 4. That's a bonus.
I actually, for a while, when I was really, because we need to focus on different things at different times. Sometimes acceptance, sometimes it's forgiveness, because you can't focus on it all at the same time, and they're very different energies as well. And when I was really focusing on forgiveness a few years back, and getting into the habit, shall we say, I would end my day, my mental day, before I go to bed. I would ask myself, who do I need to forgive today, and bring into my heart? And I would just lie there and bring myself into my heart, or anyone else, or that driver in the car who didn't say thank you, whoever had pissed me off that day, or was in my consciousness of annoyance. And it is a lovely way to end the day, because you end that day with, if you're not, you can't, this isn't to say that you're going to fully accept forgiveness for someone or yourself in that moment, but each time you do it, you bring your heart into a more open place to shift into forgiveness. Yeah.
You can see it in another way too. Instead of forgiveness, because it's difficult, you can be grateful, the things that you are grateful for, and you can be grateful for not reacting to that driver and not giving him a finger.
No, you see,
I'm grateful for what you have done. Yeah. Oh, I'm so grateful that I was able to really breathe out and be okay.
I've got into a really good habit. I don't know if it is a good habit. I might have a little bit of a sometimes in the car, but I'll very quickly afterwards go, and bless you, Sue, and bless you, driver, and then let it go. But it's like just that, and then I'm grateful for having that moment to be able to vent, because I obviously needed that safe space. I think it's in my car. I just feel it's safe because there's no one else in theory around, although there's everyone around. But anyway, but no, Anna, it is always a pleasure. I know we could chat, and we have done in the past, for hours and hours and hours. But thank you ever so much for coming on and being our one of our first guests after we've had a couple of weeks break,
summer holiday.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks very much, Anna. Yeah, it's been lovely talking to you today.
Nice talking to you.
Thanks for sharing your insights into your world. Really good.
Thank you.
Let's wrap it up for today.
Yeah, and for anyone who's watching or listening, we always do a shout out. If you do not have to be a professional. If you've got any mind, body, soul, or environmental, or any habits that you would like to chat about, please do get in contact with myself, Sue Allsworth, or David Finch, but probably best me, because I'm the one that normally does the bookings.
Yep.
I'm the PA in that sense.
You're good at that.
I that's my thing, you see. And don't forget, you can always find us on all podcast broadcasters and on the Authentic Smile YouTube channel. So, Dave, it's always a pleasure. Anna, thank you. Lovely always to see your smiling.
Thank you. You can always find me on Facebook.
I was just about to say, where can we find you?
Ana Garrancho on Facebook, or my website www.blossomfromwithin.co.uk.
Okay, brilliant. All right, we'll put a link in the file when we upload the file.
Okay.
So people will be able to find you. Lovely. Thanks very much, Anna.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
See you next week.
Bye.